Hello guys, FurballTheHammy, your friendly neighborhood hamster, is back again for another video. So some of you guys may have been wondering where I've been with my last upload being more than a week ago. I was honestly taking a break from Hypixel Skyblock because I've been struggling with spending my rest days on just Hypixel Skyblock and editing videos to catch up with the lack of time on my weekdays because I am currently enlisted in the army right now. So my weekdays, I am unable to go home and I will have to stay in the army camp to do my military duties. So I can only make videos on the weekends, and honestly it's pretty tiring to spend your 2 days of rest on just Hypixel Skyblock. I am slowly losing my sanity. Anyways, I stopped playing Skyblock for a while and I wanted to talk about something else, one of the most traumatic parts of serving in the military and my first experience with the dreaded Outfield or field camp. So for those of you who don't know what Outfield is, it's basically you going to the wilderness like a jungle or a forest to stay in. Does it sound like a camping trip? You may be wondering, but no, it's the complete opposite of a camping trip. You go there to learn and practice your military skills such as camouflage, taking cover, movement, and just firing your gun with a trigger finger at dummies. Sounds fun before you realize that instead of having a fun time with your friends in nature with a cozy campfire grilling marshmallows and a nice soft sleeping bed, you will be digging your own grave and be sleeping in your own grave, not having shelter from the rain and with military responsibilities to boot. It's the total opposite of what a camping trip actually is. And also, you can't shower for 5 days while doing physical activities under the sun, which is great. I'm excited. Anyways, before I go on, the field camp or the outfield basically sucked, but the friends I went with and our sergeants and enchicks who really helped to make the experience as easy as possible. They did help a lot, honestly, and I do appreciate the efforts, but nonetheless, for someone who's been sitting at a computer for 16 hours a day for the past 6 months after my A-levels, it's still painfully hard to do Outfield, but thank you. And without further ado, let's cue the hellhole called the field camp, and possibly the most cruel and dreaded experience that I won't even wish on my worst enemy. We got off to a great start with the skies turning dark and crying before we even left for the campsite. It was great, honestly. It's just a tragic beginning. And basically when we got there, which was a palm tree plantation, the place that we will be staying at for the next 5 days. God knows where they got this piece of land for and why they decided to use it for torches, and why a palm tree plantation, I will never understand. And upon reaching there, we gathered at a campsite for a briefing which made us sit down on the wet and muddy ground with a 25kg backpack strapped to our back, with a helmet on our heads and a rifle in our arms, and with the rain turning into a drizzle, with raindrops landing on your helmet making a tock, tock, tock sound. Goddamn, and within 10 minutes of reaching the location, I already broke down and started crying. Yes, I cried on the first day because as soon as I realized the reality of the situation where we would be sitting and sleeping on this moist muddy ground, not being able to shower, not having a bed or even a sleeping bag for God's sake, and not even having shelter from the rain, and on top of that I also had to deal with my military duties as if the earlier challenges were not bad enough. And with that, my mental state and mind honestly started to break down, realizing the futility of the situation and just thinking of how I could survive for the next 5 days. Honestly, if you reach the location and you cried in the first 10 minutes, what are the odds that you will be able to survive for the next 120 hours if the first 10 minutes have already broke your mind and shattered it? And honestly, I have no idea how I survived the 5 days. Day 1 was just the beginning and we only learned how to take cover and move in the forest, making us duck and jump behind trees in the plantation, which we were already trained for before this field camp, which honestly wasn't that hard, but jumping to take cover onto an ant's nest sure sucked. But day 1 was a mere candle to the bonfire of the hellhole for the next 4 days. For the first night, sleeping was terrible as I wasn't exhausted enough, and I was still getting used to sleeping on the hard ground with a thin plastic sheet known as a ground sheet, which looks like this. But honestly, who is used to this when most of us at least own a bed or a freaking mattress at home? Sleeping on the ground is just it's just not fun, okay, no matter what. Day 2 was by far the hardest day out of the 5 days, only rivaled by the final day, day 5. Day 2 had us spending the first 4 hours after breakfast digging a shell scrape. or your grave, aka your coffin in short, because you will be sleeping in it, taking cover in it, and using it as a strategic advantage against incoming enemies. So it will be roughly 1.8 meters long and half a meter deep, which is exciting because you will be doing it with an entrenching tool, which looks exactly like this. This was by far one of the worst experiences because after the torrent yesterday on day 1, it is now followed by the blistering hot sun, which dried and hardened up the ground, making it even harder to dig and even worse for your body, as you will have to deal with a 35 degrees Celsius sun with little cover from the trees while digging your grave. Surprisingly, I managed to finish my shell scrape after roughly 5 hours, thanks to the help of a section mate who finished his shell scrape faster. Thanks, Benny. Afterwards, we also learnt a night movement, which sounds cooler than what it actually is because we just learned tactics on moving in the dark stealthily while also making sure we don't walk into a tree like a dumbass, because fun fact, using a torchlight in the dark is like announcing to the enemy that you have a death wish. And after day 2's cancer, day 3 felt like a breeze because it's meant to be a rest day because we are supposed to be doing the IFC test, also known as the individual fieldcraft test, where in groups of 3, we will be taking turns to command the group to move forward to take down an enemy, using the skills learned across the past 2 days, such as the 4-second rule, which states that you have 4 seconds to get up and run to the next cover, and if you fail to do so, you will have to drop down and leopard crawl to the nearest cover. You will also be using the commands that you were taught, such as describing the distance of the enemy and to estimate the distance of the enemy, throwing smoke grenades when retreating, and etc. It's pretty cool, and it does sound pretty cool, but after doing this repeatedly for the past 2 days over and over again, it's not. Day 3 was also a special day as it marked the end of our outfield and the second part begins, which is the situational test, or the SIT test for short. And also special thanks to our Enchicks and Sergeants for deciding that we put up a good enough performance during the field camp so we wouldn't be punished. The reason as to why day 3 is known to be a day for punishments is because it's also letter receiving day, where our parents' letters will be passed to us. So by punishing us recruits, such as by running up and down the hill with a 25kg backpack or to face the muddy floor, it will thus make the letter session a lot more emotional per se, because basically you've been through a lot of shit. And of course, even though there was no punishments or any torture unnecessarily, I cried during the letter reading as my parents and I honestly did not expect that I would have been able to make it this far without reporting sick or giving up. And one of the Enchicks who comforted me after seeing me cry on day 1 wrote me a letter too, which was unexpected, but it was really heartwarming. Day 4 was the movement of the SIT test site, and there was a bus, so we finally managed to experience what felt like an eternity as we finally managed to move on to the second part of field camp. And also the sweet relief of the aircon in the bus. You know what? Yeah, the air conditioning was the best part of day 4. But yeah, honestly nothing much happened on day 4 because we were resting for day 5, also known as the final day. Day 5 was the commencement of the situational test, where a group of 16 people with 2 randomly chosen leaders will be put into random situations, ranging from using planks to cross a river to evacuate an injured man, to dismantling a fake bomb under a bridge, which requires us to tie safety harnesses to lower people down from a bridge in order to get access to the safety manual and to dismantle the bomb. It sounds fun, and it honestly really is, but here's the twist. Each group of 16 people will be tasked with carrying 4 bags of items for the missions, with one being a 9kg matador, which is basically a bazooka, another being a bag containing a stretcher, which is by no means light, another bag containing medical supplies, and a small bag containing claymores, which are basically your mines and explosives. Oh, and yeah, this is the 5th and final day, which means that everyone will be dead tired due to the lack of sleep and the lack of sanity, because fun fact, not showering for 5 days when you're under the hot sun doing activities really demoralizes you, and at this point on day 5, all 16 of us pretty much wanted to go home and we all just wanted to end this torture. And for reasons I don't think I'm allowed to reveal too much about the situational test because it's kind of confidential, because it's used to gauge your abilities to lead to be the future sergeants or lieutenants, or basically to hold command positions in the army. But honestly, I'm not signing on into the army and I just want to be a lance corporal. So yeah, I didn't do very well. I kind of messed up, but whatever, I don't really care. I'm just happy I survived this. At the end of day 5, when a bus came to pick us up to bring us back to our bunks, it started raining again, and honestly, while looking out at the windows and seeing the endless trees whiz by with rain pelting the windows, I started to cry again, but this time with tears of happiness and disbelief. From crying on day 1 to being able to survive and complete the 5-day outfield as a person whose past involved sitting around a computer for 12 hours a day like any Hypixel Skyblock addict, it was honestly quite an achievement for me, and this was how close I was to losing my sanity. It's not fun. And yeah, sure, even though I did have some blissful and happy memories during the field camp, it was still something that I will not ever want to do again in my life. I don't know what to say more about the field camp because this video is merely the tip of the iceberg, and I could talk about this for an hour or even more because after all, I've been there for 120 hours and basically I condensed all of this into a 10-minute video. But hey, while it was challenging and there were many points in time where I just wanted to drop out and quit, it was my friends who were always there with me throughout the entire way who made me continue treading on, even though I'm the weakest among my entire section or even the entire platoon in terms of my physical capabilities. I felt that if they weren't giving up, I honestly should not give up as well, so I just kept moving on with them. And yeah, with that, this is FurballTheHammy, your friendly neighborhood hamster, signing out. See you guys in another video, and I hope you guys will enjoy such types of videos.